Hey guys, David Stewart here. I thought it was time for another writer's vlog, a video log, because it feels kind of weird to write about writing for me at least, but I feel really comfortable just doing a little bit of a video talking about what I've been doing as a writer recently and sort of what things I'm thinking about for the near future and maybe the distant future as well. I've been putting out the rewrite. Basically, I did a page one rewrite of my first book, and I'm still in the process of that. I've been putting out the first act of that 1,000 words at a time on my website, dbspress.com. You can find that down below if you want to check that out. And I do have like some complete stories and books up on there to read as well. But that's been pretty good. And because I've been a little bit ahead on that, and I've worked ahead a little bit on that, it's given me some time to think about other projects and really to think about the business side of things as a writer in a little bit more of a three-dimensional space. The main thing that I've been sort of thinking about, and I'll try to just kind of get all of it in not the best organized fashion, but I've been thinking about this book. So I did a video on how to format an ebook, and I used this one as an example because I've formatted a lot of my books into ebooks for people to read them. One of the things that I'm continually asked by people is where they can get my book, and I tell them like, hey, it's free to read on my website. Just go read it, right? And the reason that I was always wanting to push this website is I came from the music business, and in the music business, basically the music business is crap right now. You guys probably know that. And the reason it's crap is because people just steal music left, right, and center. People are really, really unwilling to pay for music or pay much for music outside of like very specific, very community-based fan circles like heavy metal or jazz, right? Even classical music people don't really want to pay for anymore. And so I kind of feel that the wind is blowing in a certain way with the progress of technology, that we're approaching a time where essentially all artistic payment will be optional on some level. It will be voluntary on some level. And not that a regular transaction isn't voluntary, but essentially you can't compel somebody to exchange money for your product. That they have the ability to pirate it without any difficulty. We're there basically with software for most people. I know that there's lots of people trying to put a stop to piracy, but it's very difficult to do. So that's where we're at. And so I made the website with that in mind. That's like, hey, I'm not going to charge for what I do, and I'm on YouTube, which charges no upfront cost for people to watch the videos, which I actually think is great for many reasons. So I'm like, okay, well, since people aren't willing to pay for stuff up front, I'll give it away, but I'll give it away in a really specific location that allows me to monetize it, control it, those sorts of things. So you have to come to my website to read it, and it's easier and more honest to come to my website and read my book and have ads on than it is to steal it in some way, right? Now, that's where I came up with the website, right? That's where I came up with the website. But I have been introduced to reality. Like I try not to make reality conform to my vision. I try to conform my understanding to what reality is. And the reality is people don't like to read books at their computer, and they don't really like to read them on their phone, though there's a lot of people who read like ebooks on their phone, and you do have to keep that market in mind. People are not wanting to go to a website and bookmark things, and even though I feel like my table of contents, even on a phone, are very easy to manage and figure out where you're at. That's just not the way people really prefer to consume this particular kind of content. And the other thing is in the ebook market, even there's a surprisingly low amount of theft that goes on. Like piracy happens, but it doesn't happen in such a way that I think my bottom line would ever really be endangered from it. The people who read books are usually willing to pay for them, and books are very cheap. Like we're talking, a couple dollars for an ebook in a lot of cases, sometimes 99 cents. And what you get for that is a whole lot of value. And the value proposition is so great. There's so many hours of entertainment compared to the price when you buy a book. Like it's far more than games. Games can have an incredible price to entertainment value, much more than a movie. If you think about a movie gives you 2 hours and it costs like $10. That's actually really expensive compared to a book that costs $5 and gives you 20 plus hours if it's a good long book, right? That's like the value proposition between those two is massive. So people are, and this is sort of a conclusion I've come to through just basically exploring marketing and data on especially the Kindle platform, especially the Amazon platform. The price of a book can off-put people, but when books are priced below a certain threshold, the price is almost irrelevant because the real value proposition is the amount of time it takes to read the book. People will either read a book or not read it, and not think so much about how much they paid for it. Like if they paid $1 for it, they're not going to feel like they need to get their 99 cents out of a book if they don't like it, which is kind of the beauty of it. So we're really dealing with such a high value proposition that the prospect of theft is pretty low for a lot of these cheaper ebooks, and a lot of people give their ebooks away on Amazon anyway. And there's a whole bunch of other marketing strategies related to giving away ebooks and promoting them for 99 cents and changing prices and all that kind of stuff. And I've been looking into a lot of that stuff over the last week. So the conclusion I kind of came to was I really want to put out Muramasa because a lot of people are always asking me for that particular book, for this book, Muramasa Blood Drinker, because it's an interesting topic. It takes place in an interesting time period. It's nice and violent, and I feel like it's a good story. People are always asking me, and I've gotten them on YouTube, but like family, friends, random people I run into, other people I talk to on the internet, they're always like, well, how is it on Amazon? Is it on Barnes & Noble? How do I get your book? And I'm like, read it for free. And they may not do that because they don't really want to deal with like a website, even a website that I think is pretty easy to navigate. And I could always improve my website design. I don't feel like I have designed the ultimate website. No, there's always improvement to be made. So I have to think about how do I want to put this book out. Reflecting on the traditional publishing route, there's a couple things that I have in mind with this. The first one is that this novel does not fit well into your standard genres, which is a problem whether I'm going to be an independent publisher kind of person or I'm going to go the traditional route. Because it doesn't fit neatly into, it's historical fantasy, but it's set in Japan, which is a little weird. It's actually, there is some historical accuracy in it, but then there's also like very fantastical things in it. It's got some noir elements that people tell me about when they read it. They're like, yeah, I really liked the noir style. And I'm like, yeah, I did kind of use that, but I didn't really think people would pick up on that or think that it is somehow connected to like the noir genre or the crime noir genre. But it does kind of have that feel. So it doesn't fit neatly into a lot of genres. It's not just like a straight fantasy. It's not young adult, which is like definitely the hot ticket right now. It's not historical fiction. It's like historical fantasy. Historical fantasy is a thing, but most historical fantasy isn't this. It's Civil War with magic or something like that. It's closer to urban fantasy than it is than this, which to me is more like I'm writing like in a medieval fantastical Europe, like King Arthur is the equivalency that I would make to Muramasa, and that it's a real time period, but it's got elements of magic, right? So that's how I think about this book, which makes me say, well, I'm making the connection with people. They want to read it, so I got to have a way for them to read it, and because it's not going to go super well into like that regular publishing market. There's not a lot of agents that are interested in representing this kind of thing, and at least the ones that I've tried to talk to. So maybe I should go the traditional or go the independent publishing route. Here's the other thing about independent publishing. and versus like traditional publishing. I get more and more the message from people who have traditional publishing contracts and things like that, that publish their book traditionally, that there's just like not any money in the book business, right? And I don't do this for the money. I don't make YouTube videos for the money either. I do it for me because I care about having this art exist. But that like they're really not making the money from it. Like the book company is doing all the promotion to sell the book, and then the author gets an advance, and then they get some royalties, but it ends up being virtually nothing, and no one's giving out advances really. Like especially not for your first book, you're not going to get an advance. You have to be an established author to get an advance, and I am not that. So I am a nobody. Begging for table scraps, like please, make my book exist. But so there's that. Like it may not be super fruitful for me to go the traditional publishing route, and then you have to make all the little compromises that exist in order to get that book to exist in that. That means editing the book a certain way that I may not want to have it edited. That may mean cutting some things out I don't want to cut out, or adding things in I don't want to add, changing language that I don't want to change, changing elements I don't want to change in order for it to fit more neatly into a particular genre or be sellable. Because obviously a publishing company is a business. They're not going to they're taking a risk whenever they publish something that they're going to meet and exceed their expenses for doing it. And they're not going to take that risk on something that they feel won't sell. So you're looking at doing like a lot of free rewrites, hiring editors possibly for a very large amount of money to possibly do nothing to the manuscript. I'm a pretty analytical person. I've had people that I really trust look at this manuscript even before I was putting it out on my website to give me good feedback, and I'm pretty happy with the structure of this novel. I'm not really looking for general editing. What I am looking for is copy editing. So that is something that I will definitely have to do if I'm going to put this book out. So what I'm really thinking of now for Muramasa is to figure out how to put it. I mean, I know how to put it on Amazon, but to do it in a way that will give it a chance of having some success there, independent of just me begging random people to read it, right? So that means a really good book cover. Like a good book cover really has to sell your book. That means a well edited manuscript, at least copy editing for sure. So I need to get some copy editing. That means certain kinds of promotion techniques to kind of get the word out there, and all that stuff will have to be done in order to kind of get this book off the ground. And also getting like reviews on the Amazon website and to kind of make it seem like it's legitimate. Not that it's not legitimate, but you have to think from an outsider's perspective. And the cover's a big thing, right? I'm not a graphic designer. I'm a writer. I do visual art to a certain extent, but I'm not. I wouldn't consider that my strength compared to music and narrative. So the options for creating a really good cover are to, first of all, not care about the cover, which I don't want to not care about it, and just like have it be bad and give it away for free and hope that makes up for the bad cover. To pay somebody to create a really good cover, which could be very expensive, cost several $100s plus to get a well-designed cover, which may or may not end up actually being good or actually working the way I want it to work. So if I pay somebody for a cover and the cover still isn't quite right, then you've kind of flushed the money down the toilet, and the cover isn't really doing the work that it needs to do. And then the third option, which is to learn how to design book covers for myself. And I am trying to apply my analytical mind to figure out how good book covers are constructed. I've done some reading on it, and I've done some watching on it, and I'm not sure which of those three paths I will pursue. I would prefer to be able to gain the skill to make my own book covers. That's where my preference is, because I kind of want to think about this book and this whole business in the long term. That I want this book to be out, but there's other books that I have, and I want those to be out too. So once you get established and you have multiple books out, then you're not just some dude to the book, like you're an author, has books out. And for each of those, I'd like them to have a good cover. And that means if I am able to invest in acquiring really good graphic art skills right now, that means that's going to pay off down the road in saving from not having to hire out that work to people. And there's always dangers for doing your own art in that we love the things best which our own hands have made. Tolkien said that, and he's correct. We love best the things that we make with our own hands, and that means that you may be more attached to a cover than you perhaps ought to be. And often I think authors are more attached to some of the writing that they do than they ought to be. And I think it's always good, like with this book, when I did the edit of this book, I took like a year off from it, came back, read through it, made some really good critical cuts, and tweaked a couple of things to make the narrative really good. But I felt like I didn't have to change that much, which was very encouraging to me. It's like, oh, I don't have to rewrite this one. It doesn't suck. Like this one, I finally basically got it right. So I want to come out with this one. I'm leaning towards investing in those skills, but that takes time. That takes effort. It takes a lot of practice. The beauty of sort of the Kindle platform, of the Amazon platform, is that I can change the book cover later. So if I come up with a book cover in the next couple weeks of practicing, and I might like stream this on Twitch, like me trying to design this book cover, which I've been trying to design a book cover the last couple nights, and of course the first time you do something, you will suck at it. So they suck, but that's okay, because then you finish it and you're like, well, that sucks. Why does it suck? And where do I go from there? So yeah, that may take a little bit of investment to get it, but overall I think it'll be worth it. So that's kind of what I'm leaning towards, is acquiring another skill. And I think if anyone here that's watching this is thinking about doing this whole self-publishing thing, acquiring those extra skills, I think is probably really worth your time. Learning how to do some basic book cover design, learning how to format your document so that it looks great as an ebook, and then also I'll have to format the document for like a create space on-demand publishing kind of thing, which I already have skills to do that, but I'll just have to make sure that I'm acquiring a little bit more to make sure my book looks the way it needs to look for what it is. And so I think it's worth your time to invest in some of those skills. Invest in really knowing how to format your document so that you can make a good ebook. Invest in knowing knowing some basic HTML will help you make a good ebook and help you make a good website. Knowing basic web design principles, I think, is worth knowing. All these things are skills that you'll probably have to pick up as an author at some point, unless you just want to hire someone to do everything. And then you're probably not going to make any money at it, and then you've just kind of you're just at a neutral level. So not that making money's the whole thing. So that's what I'm thinking about with this book. I really would like to get this in some people's hands and get this ebook out there. I may put a version of this ebook up on my website for people to download, like maybe have like a little FTP link or something like that. If anyone wants to read it and possibly like do some copy editing, find the typos, because I'm not very good at finding typos. That's something that I'm actually not good at. And it's really good to have a second pair of eyes to look at anything that you're doing. But yeah, that's some of the stuff I'm thinking about. It's like, how do we market it? What's the multi-book strategy? What skills do I need to acquire to be really good at this? What software do I have to buy to be good at this? And how do I get it into the hands of people who actually want to read it in such a way that it will also have the possibility to grow beyond that, right? That's what I'm thinking about with this book. It's very challenging to think along those lines, but it's also encouraging. It's encouraging to think like I can do this on my own, because my whole point, like I have this whole, I tell kids this a lot, who are thinking about being musicians or something like that, I'm like, pick one other skill so that you are not making big sacrifices in your artistic self in order to pay the rent, so to speak. That you are able to pay the rent with some other skill if your creative endeavor it's not paying you so well. If that makes any sense. So that's kind of what I talk about with this. Like I'm not relying on my books to keep the lights on. That's not where I'm at. So I'm okay putting out the art as I see it, like the purity of the art. And I'll do the same thing if I record a metal album this year. Which is another thing I might do. I'll do the same thing. I will make that music as pure as I want it to be. And if people don't buy it, that's okay, because I don't have to keep the lights on by selling that. I'm okay if only a couple people buy the album. I'm okay if only a couple people buy the book, because it's the book that I wanted to write. And that's kind of how I feel about it. Of course, you're always going to make a couple of trade-offs, because you want to actually communicate something to your audience. So hence I did not write this book in like twin speak or something like that for some like artistic expression. I think there's always like a balance point between the audience and the writer's like vision, and you have to kind of meet them in the middle sometimes to make sure that you're able to communicate what you want to communicate. So I don't think it's absolutely one or absolutely the other, but certainly I don't feel the need to hack up my manuscript and turn it into like a schlocky bestseller in order to turn the lights on. So I'm okay with that. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully this content is not horribly boring to you and there's a little bit of interest to you. Please let me know what you think and any advice you have for me on those sorts of grounds, because I'm always looking for input to sort of figure out this business better and figure out how I can get my stuff out there to the people who actually are interested in reading it and who might be wanting to pay for it or something like that. But anyway, I do appreciate it. You could visit my websites, dvspress.com, davidvstewart.com. Let me know what you like and would like to see or hear from me. I'm always happy to deliver if I can. And I do have new stuff coming out on DVS Press. Please check it out if you are so inclined to do so. I really, really appreciate people seeing what I have to show. It makes me very happy. So have a good one and take care.